I know you're not feeling it today, but we're starting our life together now. This is our moment. I love you.
I never thought one day I would say these words. I fell in love with my own husband. Because in the beginning, I didn't love him. I didn't even want him. I still remember the night before our wedding. My hands shaking, my heart hurting, my dreams collapsing one by one. I wanted a future, a career, a life built with my own choices, not one forced on me by my family. They kept saying, "He's a good man, you'll learn to love him." But their words felt like chains around my chest. On our wedding day, I couldn't even look into his eyes for more than a second. He looked at me with hope. I looked at him with fear. Days passed, then weeks. He tried. I didn't. He brought me flowers every morning, as if hoping each petal could melt a little piece of the ice inside me. He left small notes around the house, little compliments, little wishes, little hopes. I ignored most of them. But everything changed the day I accidentally opened the small leather notebook he kept on his desk. Inside it, a list. A long list. Best jobs for her. Under it, addresses, schedules, salary ranges, even notes like, "She will shine in this one." It was all about me. My dreams. My happiness. My freedom. For a moment I stood there frozen, my fingertips trembling over the ink. Why would a man I barely appreciated care so deeply? That evening he told me with the softest voice I had ever heard from him, "You should work. You're getting bored at home. And I don't want to be the reason you stop growing. I'll support you in anything you choose." And then he showed me the same list I had secretly seen. My heart skipped. Something warm, frighteningly warm, spread through my chest. It was the first time, the very first time, I felt my walls crack. Just a little. And that little crack was the beginning of something I never expected. Something inside me shifted that day. Maybe it was the way he quietly respected my dreams. Maybe it was the way he didn't push, didn't demand, didn't complain. He simply supported me, even when I gave him nothing in return. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual. Not for himself. For me. He ironed my clothes. He prepared breakfast. He placed a small flower next to my cup of tea, the kind of flower I once mentioned liking only in passing. I didn't even think he heard me back then. When I hesitated about going to job interviews, he didn't guilt-trip me or act offended. Instead, he said softly, "If you feel nervous, I'll come with you, just so you don't feel alone." And he did. He stood beside me the entire day as we went from place to place. He waited patiently in the lobbies while I talked to managers. Sometimes I caught him watching me, not with ownership, not with pressure, but with genuine pride. For the first time, I didn't see a stranger beside me. I saw a man who believed in me more than I believed in myself. Days flowed into weeks. I finally got the job. The evening I came home with the acceptance letter in my hand, he stayed in the kitchen longer than usual. I thought he was busy, but when I opened the door I froze. Candles. Warm lights. A table full of food he had cooked himself. And a small bouquet waiting for me like a gentle welcome. He smiled, shy, almost nervous, and said, "I didn't know what you'd like, so I tried my best." That single moment broke something inside me, in the most beautiful way. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I wanted to hold him. I wanted to let myself fall, just a little. Not because I was forced, not because I had no choice, but because this man, this quiet, patient, loyal man, deserved to be loved. And that night, for the first time, I realized I was no longer indifferent. I was beginning to love him. Love doesn't arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives quietly, softly, like a whisper you don't notice until it becomes the only voice you hear. For me, it happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. I had my first exhausting day at work. Meetings, paperwork, new faces, new rules. By the time I stepped out of the building, my legs were trembling from stress. I texted him, "I'll be home late." I expected a simple okay. Instead, he replied, "Take your time. I'll have dinner ready." I smiled at my phone, without even realizing it. When I finally reached home, tired, tense, fighting back the urge to cry from exhaustion, I opened the door and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Warmth. Home. The smell of freshly cooked food filled the air. Soft music played in the background. And there he was, standing in the kitchen, a towel on his shoulder, trying to plate pasta in the neatest way possible. He turned around, smiled carefully, and said, "You must be tired. Sit down, please." No man had ever spoken to me like that. Not with pity, not with control, but with care. I sat down, suddenly fighting tears. Not because I was sad, but because something inside me was melting, something I had kept frozen for too long. He brought the plate to me, placed it softly on the table, and then he brushed a loose hair behind my ear with the gentlest touch. My breath caught. My heart stumbled. The room felt smaller, warmer, softer. He didn't lean closer. He didn't try to take advantage of the moment. He simply asked, "Are you okay?" That question from him, at that moment, broke every last wall I had left. I looked at him, really looked, and suddenly every memory of his kindness came rushing back. The flowers, the notes, the list of jobs, the early mornings, the patient smiles, the love he gave without receiving any in return. Something inside me whispered, "You love him." I didn't say it out loud. I couldn't. But the truth wrapped itself around my heart like warm light. That night, after dinner, I walked past him, then stopped, turned back, and gently placed my hand on his arm. He looked surprised, as if touch from me was the last thing he expected. And all I could say was, "Thank you for everything." He blinked, confused. For what? For being the man I didn't know I needed. I wanted to say, but instead I whispered, "For caring." And in his eyes, just for a second, I saw something break, something soften, something hope. After that night, something between us changed. Not suddenly, not loudly, but in small, beautiful ways that only two people quietly falling in love could feel. He started waking up a little earlier, not to make breakfast, but to sit across from me with his own cup of tea, pretending he just wanted company. He wasn't good at pretending. His eyes gave him away every time. On my way to work, he always stood near the gate, watching until I disappeared around the corner. He thought I never noticed. But through the reflection of a window, through the corner of my eye, I saw him. And every time my heart did that strange, warm flip I couldn't control anymore. One evening, I returned home later than usual. Rain was pouring heavily, and my clothes were soaked. I was worried he'd be upset, or at least anxious. But when I walked in, he rushed toward me like he'd been waiting by the door for hours. His voice shook. "Why didn't you call? You're freezing, come here." Before I could protest, he wrapped a warm towel around my shoulders, his hands gently rubbing my arms to warm me up. Not in a possessive way, not in a demanding way, but in a way that said, "Your comfort matters more than anything." Something in my chest tightened painfully. That kind of tenderness. I wasn't used to it. I didn't know how to handle it. While I changed into dry clothes, I caught my reflection in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed, not from the cold, but from his touch. From the realization that I didn't just care for him. I needed him. When I came out, he had prepared hot soup and placed it on the table. Steam rose in gentle curls. He looked at me nervously, as if he wasn't sure if he was allowed to take care of me. I sat down quietly. He sat across from me, and for a long moment, we just looked at each other. No words, just that growing connection neither of us dared to name. Finally, he spoke, barely above a whisper. "I'm glad you came home safe." The way he said it, the depth behind those simple words, it was too much. I couldn't hold myself back anymore. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. A small gesture, but for us, it felt like an entire confession. He froze, eyes wide, breath caught, as if my touch was a dream he didn't expect to live. And then slowly, so slowly, he turned his hand to hold mine. My heartbeat wasn't just fast. It was loud. I could feel it everywhere, in my throat, in my fingertips, in the space between us. For the first time since our forced wedding day, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't trapped. I wasn't resentful. I was falling, truly falling. And this time, it was my choice. The days that followed felt different, softer, slower, heavier with unspoken feelings. Every glance lingered a little longer. Every touch carried a new meaning. Every silence between us felt warmer than any words. But the moment everything truly shifted was a morning I'll never forget. I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet. Sunlight was slipping softly through the curtains. I walked into the living room and found him sitting on the sofa, half asleep, still dressed in the clothes from the night before. A blanket was draped over the armrest, untouched. His phone lay on the table with missed calls. And on the floor beside him, a small gift box. My footsteps startled him awake. He sat up quickly, rubbing his eyes. "Oh, you're awake. I didn't want to bother you. Why didn't you come to bed?" I asked softly. He hesitated. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he didn't know if he should say it. "I wanted to wait for you," he finally admitted. "Just to make sure you slept well after yesterday. You were tired." My throat tightened. He stayed here all night, just to make sure I was okay. Who does that? Who loves like that, so selflessly, so quietly? I noticed the gift box and held it up with a questioning look. He froze. "Oh, that's nothing special. Just something I thought you might like." Inside was a tiny silver chain with a delicate heart-shaped pendant. Simple, elegant, thoughtful, painfully thoughtful. He scratched the back of his neck, nervous. "I know it's not expensive, but..." I didn't let him finish. I stepped closer, lifted my hair, and whispered, "Can you put it on me?" His breath caught. His hands trembled as he fastened the clasp behind my neck. His fingers brushed my skin, warm, gentle, careful. That touch sent shivers down my spine. When he finished, I turned around. We stood so close I could feel his heartbeat. His eyes searched mine, full of emotions he had been holding back for months. And without thinking, without fear, I reached out and touched his face. His eyes widened. He whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Why are you looking at me like that?" I swallowed hard. Because I finally understood. Because... My voice broke. "You're the reason I'm smiling right now." I saw it. The instant his heart broke open. His shoulders slumped. His eyes sparkled. He let out a breath he'd been holding for so long. He didn't hug me. He didn't rush. He just put his hand on my face and held it, as if he were memorizing that moment. And in that quiet hotel, with the sunlight warming our faces and a small pendant resting on my heart, I knew I had chosen him. Completely. Willingly. Completely. After that morning, everything between us deepened. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but in ways that felt real, steady, and impossibly tender. We became partners. We became friends. We became something neither of us had words for yet. He began driving me to work every morning. Not because I needed it, but because he wanted every extra minute with me. Each ride was filled with soft music and softer glances. Sometimes he reached for my hand on the gear shift. Sometimes I pulled my hand away. Not because I didn't want it, but because the feeling overwhelmed me. One evening, I received unexpected overtime at work. By the time I finished, it was dark and cold. I walked outside, prepared to take the bus. But there he was leaning against the car, hands in pockets, eyes searching for me the second the doors opened. "You're late," he said, trying to sound serious. But his relief was obvious. I was worried. "You didn't have to wait," I murmured. "Yes, I did," he answered simply. As we drove home, silence settled between us. But it wasn't empty. It was full of things we were both afraid to say. When we arrived, he surprised me again. The lights in the house were dim. The table set. Dinner warm and waiting. "You should eat," he said quietly. "You haven't had a proper meal today." His voice, his eyes, the way he noticed every small detail of my life, it made something inside me ache. A good ache. The kind that whispers, "You are loved." Deeply. Later that night, he knocked on the bedroom door. Not to come in, but to hand me a cup of hot tea. "Drink this before you sleep," he said. "It will help you relax." As he turned away, I stopped him without thinking. "Stay for a moment," I whispered. He froze, as if he wasn't sure he heard me right. So I repeated it. "Please stay." He stepped inside slowly, cautiously, as if he was afraid the moment might disappear. We sat at the edge of the bed, not touching, not speaking, just breathing in the same space, hearts beating in quiet harmony. Then gently, I leaned my head on his shoulder. I felt him stiffen, then melt slowly beautifully, as if my touch was a blessing he never thought he'd receive. He whispered my name like a prayer. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of his shoulder, his presence, his sincerity wash over me. For the first time since our arranged marriage, I didn't feel alone. I felt seen. I felt chosen. I felt safe. And as I sat there with my head resting on my husband's shoulder, I realized something undeniable. I wasn't just falling in love with him. I had already fallen. The night everything reached its peak started quietly, the kind of quiet that makes your heart whisper truths you can't ignore. I came home late again, exhausted from work. But something felt different the moment I opened the door. The lights were warm. Soft music played, my favorite kind. And on the coffee table, a small envelope with my name written in his handwriting. My heartbeat stumbled. I looked around, confused. "Where are you?" I called out. "In here," he answered from the living room. He stood near the window, hands clasped together, nervous, but trying to hide it behind a soft smile. "What is all this?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he nodded toward the envelope. My fingers shook as I opened it. Inside was a paper, not a letter, but a car key, taped beside a reservation certificate. "A new car?" I whispered, stunned. He nodded, eyes searching mine carefully. "If you're starting a new life, building your career, you should have something safe to drive." And he took a breath, voice turning fragile. "You deserve comfort." My eyes burned instantly. Tears gathered before I could stop them. He hurried closer, worried. "Please don't cry. I didn't want to overwhelm you." But I stepped forward and put my hands on his chest, stopping his words. His breath caught, his body froze under my touch. "Why?" I whispered, voice shaking. "Why do you care this much for me?" His answer broke something inside me. "Because loving you is the only thing I'm good at." The tears finally spilled. Pain, guilt, love, gratitude. All of it rushed to the surface. For so long he loved me quietly, patiently, bravely, even when I gave him nothing, even when my heart was still locked. I couldn't hold myself back anymore. I wrapped my arms around him, not out of duty, not out of pity, but because I needed him. He stood frozen at first, as if he didn't believe it was real. Then slowly, he held me back, strongly, gently, completely. I whispered into his chest. He froze, his breath hitched. I repeated it, harder this time, pressing my forehead to his heart. "I love you. I love you. I love you." His hands touched my face, gently lifting it up so I could look at him. His eyes were wet. "Say it again," he whispered. "Please." I held his cheeks and smiled through my tears. "I love you." He closed his eyes. A sense of relief washed over him, as if he had been drowning for months. And he finally breathed again. Then he kissed me, not hastily, not hopeless, but with years of unspoken love. Soft, warm, trembling. It felt like I had been waiting for this moment all my life. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead on mine. "Next month," he whispered, "I want to take you somewhere far away from everything. A new country. Just us. Just peace. Just love." I smiled, tears still streaming down my face. "Wherever," I whispered. "If you're with me." He held my hands, his fingers caressing my skin, his voice breaking with emotion. "I never expected you to love me back. But thank you for choosing me." I pressed my lips to his hand. "I didn't choose you before," I said softly. "But now, I choose you every day. And I always will." And in that moment, in her arms, her heart beating against mine, the marriage I never dreamed of became a love I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.